What's the latest transfer portal buzz for the Oklahoma Sooners?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get started with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. The Oklahoma Sooners have seen a number of offensive players enter the transfer portal, most notably Jackson Arnold, Nick Anderson, and to another extent, Caleb Hicks. Bauer Sharp, Oklahoma's leading receiver for the 2024 season, entered the transfer portal over the weekend, or it was reported that he was entering the transfer portal over the weekend.
Yeah, he's going to add to the list of players that are going to be in the portal starting on Monday. Believe me, today is going to be the day where things are going to explode. So throughout the day, you're going to hear all kinds of names from everybody, especially after the college football playoff was announced. You saw a whole bunch of dudes' names start populating in the portal or whatnot. You're going to see even more today. So just keep your eyes open as the day goes on. We'll have some videos and conversations around it starting, tomorrow morning, but there's going to be a lot of dudes. And the Bauer Sharp one was one that we all expected, to be honest, based upon the way everybody reacted. You kind of sensed that was one that was going to happen. And I kind of feel bad for the guy. Truth be told, it feels like it was pure malpractice in the way that he was leveraged. We brought him in to be like a fourth or fifth option at tight end, just have some athleticism or a guy that could find a way to get open. And then we force him to be the number one option. And granted, he was the top receiver at the most catches as well as the most yards this season. That's awful. That was not how things were supposed to go. And I really don't like how the fan response has been to that, because it's not his fault. He came in and did everything he was asked. And unfortunately, it just was not very good. It's also not his fault that the quarterbacks just really weren't throwing the ball like they should have. I think we saw some passes across the middle at the first couple games of the season. That stopped happening, and then it came back a little bit at the end. He made catches. He missed some too, but he should have never been our number one option.
Well, you just look at where they targeted him and how often they targeted him at or behind the line of scrimmage. And that's what you're speaking to right there when you talk about just player malpractice. I mean, they did not put him in a situation to be very successful, because teams were allowed to live along the line of scrimmage against Oklahoma's offense. And then you're throwing tight end screens. You're throwing behind the line of scrimmage to your tight end. It just never made a whole lot of sense. This was the one guy that you could kind of trust to get down the field and be successful for you. And you look at his, receiving depth chart. Sorry, I pulled up the wrong one. Where's it at? Receiving depth. There it is. I'm looking at Pro Football Focus. They do a really good job at showing receiving depth. And he had just 10 targets in the intermediate part of the field. Only 12 targets beyond 10 yards down the field all season long.
And the one that he broke for was a 40 or 50 something yards. It got called back because, Jake Roberts had got caught with the pick play, didn't play it off properly with the big back. But, it happens.
He had 14 targets behind the line of scrimmage, Jay. He had more targets behind the line of scrimmage than he did in the intermediate to deep part of the passing game. And that just goes to show just how broken Oklahoma's pass offense was, because when he did get targeted down there, he had 10 targets, 6 catches for 98 yards and a touchdown when thrown from 10 to 19 yards down the field.
Yeah.
So he was efficient. He was making plays for you in the passing game that way. It's just they were like really reluctant to try and push the ball downfield. He had 43 targets under 10 yards.
That's crazy.
Just crazy.
It's crazy.
With a guy that's as athletic as he is.
Yeah, you should leverage him more going across the middle.
That flag route, that's that kind of that short corner that they like to use, where the tight end's going up the field and then going to the sideline. He was very effective at that. it's just the passing offense was just broken all season long, and they weren't able to really take advantage of his athleticism, and they were just living in the short game. That's all they could really do in the passing game. And then they decided, you know what, we need to run about 1 billion tight end screens because it's working a ton. It never worked either. It really put him in a bad spot. And that doesn't even begin to talk about the number of trick plays they tried to throw with Bauer Sharp. And listen, the interception against LSU, it was bad, but that's a dude just out there trying to make something happen. And listen, it didn't go the way anybody wanted it to go for anybody on offense, Bauer Sharp being one of them. But you said it right off the top. He did everything he was asked to do.
Yeah, he just went out there and played ball. We asked him to do certain things, and he struggled, but he did it, and he tried, and that's all that mattered to me is he gave the effort. And the bad part about that, John, is the plays that they ran with him was because they were trying to find ways to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly. Mm-hmm. Quarterbacks weren't handling it well. And I contend if we just had more confidence at the passing game, I think that, the offense could have flown a little bit better. Now, I understand that the offensive line wasn't giving us everything we needed, but some of those decisions, some of those moments when the line was doing well or holding up on certain plays, we still weren't taking the time to get rid of the ball. Like I screamed it all the time. Throw the ball. Just throw it. Get the ball at your hands. If it hits the kneecap and hit the ground, cool. If it hits their hands and they catch it, great. If you throw it deep and it's incomplete, if it's intercepted deep, I'm not complaining. Get the ball out your hands. And that was the one thing with Bauer is that he actually made those attempts, and it's all that mattered. So
now
adding,
you're looking at him in a room of what right now? Caden Helms, Davin Mitchell, Trine Washington,
Caden McIntyre. Yeah. I mean, that's it.
Are you portal shopping for a tight end at this point?
Absolutely. And I hope we go after a few names like Luke Haas, the tight end from Arkansas, the Ball State one, Tanner, whatever, it starts with a K. Tanner, I don't have his name in front of me, but Tanner is another one. There's a few tight ends out there that you should go after. Hey, go out of Caleb Olam, the tight end from Alabama / wide receiver. He may be worth your time.
Yeah.
But if anything, yes.
Yeah.
Tanner, you get chance on.
I'm going to try to pronounce this. Tanner Koziol.
We'll go with that.
K-O-Z-O-I-O-L. K-O-Z-O-I-O-L. We'll just call him Tanner K.
He was a Mackey finalist, semifinalist.
Yeah. Dude had
92 catches, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, top of the list, Luke Haas, just because he's got some SEC production. He's a Sooner kid. I mean, he was an in-state kid, had committed to Oklahoma. The coaching change happened. He flipped to Arkansas. I would love to get him on the field. He's got a lot of athleticism, but listen, Tanner Koziol would be great as well. Would love to have either of those guys, but everybody's going to want to have either of those guys. Those are going to be two dudes that are going to be very highly coveted. You mentioned Jaden Rowe is another name that entered the transfer portal over the weekend. A really athletic and fast defensive back, just could never put it together in his couple years with Oklahoma.
Yeah, he was one I was really hoping for. He comes in at like 6'2", 200 something pounds. He's a track kid, so he runs like a 10, like 3, 10, 4, 10, 5, 100, whatever. He's fast, but he just could never get healthy and be able to play, man. But he was one that I was hoping for from Tulsa Union, so he's an okay prep. And, we always try to lean in on the okay preps because when you start getting your top tier okay preps, you want them to actually be here and you want them to want to play for their home school. And he was one that it didn't work out, man. He was one that I was very excited about, and unfortunately it didn't work out. You had a few others. You had a couple of walk-on players that also hit the portal as well. So it's today's going to be huge. I mean, this weekend you start to see some names pop up from all the programs, but today it's probably going to explode all day long. So keep your Twitter up and just keep scrolling because it's going to not stop.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how active Oklahoma is. We know that they're already targeting a wide receiver out of Indiana. And that's going to be a really intriguing name to watch as well. His name is Donovan McCulley. He was a very productive wide receiver for the Hoosiers. He started out as a quarterback, transitioned to wide receiver his sophomore year, and had a very productive junior year in 2023, where he led the Hoosiers in receiving. We'll see how that visit goes. He's also being coveted by a number of top tier programs across the country. So we'll see how that goes. We'll talk about that for tomorrow's show, as I'm sure we won't have a decision on Donovan McCulley imminently, because again, he's being heavily recruited. But what's Oklahoma going to do at quarterback? That's the big question on everybody's mind. We're starting to get more and more names entering the portal. Where does Oklahoma go? Let's discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite. And right now you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply at omahasteaks.com. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers. Make sure you're tuned in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Jay, the quarterback question is going to be the biggest one on everybody's minds as Jackson Arnold entered the portal. You got Michael Hawkins expected to start the bowl game for the Sooners, which we'll talk about the bowl game coming up in our third segment today. So where do you think Oklahoma's heading at quarterback? What do you think are going to be some of the top names they're pursuing?
Yeah, of course, the number one name on the list that Oklahoma should pursue and hopefully win is John Mateer, quarterback at Washington State. As of right now, he is going through all of the bowl workouts, and because of that, in practices, people are thinking, oh, he's probably not going to hit the portal. But you got to remember, when we went through a whole coaching change, Caleb Williams played in the bowl game before he actually entered the transfer portal. So that situation's probably going to be the long game. So I would not expect that to be resolved immediately. But there are a few names out there that you can keep your eyes out for, like Caden Salter, the quarterback over there at Liberty. But one that jumped in the portal yesterday that I think is probably one that I could really see us going after is Darian Mensah, the quarterback at Tulane, 6'3", 200 pounds. We watched him be a pain against us when we played. We watched him be a pain for Kansas State when they played him. And they finished the season, 8-4? They almost, or 9-4? They were 9-4. So they almost went to won their conference championship. So he's one that I think is a definite possibility for Oklahoma, and he's actually one that kind of makes sense for us to pursue. He has all the skills that would work great in a Ben Arbuckle offense, and he's mobile enough. I mean, I think he could run a lot more than he does, but you put him in Arbuckle's system, he could probably cook. But the question is, between him and Michael Hawkins, how would that battle go? I think you may want someone a little bit more experienced, but I think Mensah's one to really keep your eyes out on.
Yeah, I think if you're going Mensah, you can have a legit quarterback competition between the two.
Yep.
Mensah's got a year's worth of starting experience, and he had some really good games. I mean, he went for 342 and 2 touchdowns against Kansas State. I mean, really strong performance. Went 326 and 3 touchdowns against South Florida. Against Oklahoma, not as efficient, just completed 43.8%, but threw for 166 and a touchdown. Again, against a really good Oklahoma defense. So that's not shocking. They were doing that to a lot of people last year. So a lot of promising potential out of Darian Mensah, but I think you're right. Oklahoma may want to lean more into somebody more experienced, and that to me lends towards a John Mateer. Now, Washington State doesn't play their bowl game until December 27, which is actually when Oklahoma plays their bowl game as well, December 27. So you're not going to hear anything for 18 days. It's going to be a ways out still. So if Oklahoma has some thought that they know where this is going to go based on Arbuckle's relationship with John Mateer, then you might not hear anything for a while. Yeah. And there will have to be some patience exhibited if that's going to be the direction Oklahoma goes. But there are some intriguing names in Darian Mensah, in Connor Weigman, Miller Moss. I mean, that's an experienced dude. He's shown some things. Obviously, didn't work out with Lincoln Riley and USC, so it may not be a name that you fully want to lean into, but it feels like all the chips are going to be in on John Mateer.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to lean heavily into that one. Another name to think about is Matthew Sluka, the quarterback that was at UNLV. You know, he's a
Brent Venables say, Jay? What does he say? You recruit your problems.
I understand that, but if we're gonna have Donovan McCulley come in for a meeting today, then I think that you should go ahead and consider Matthew Sluka at this point. Okay. If we're gonna do one, you may as well do the other. And I don't think it's
we don't know what the ins and outs are of Donovan McCulley. We don't know what the situation is there.
Hey, I mean, we don't know the situation either at with Sluka.
Pretty well documented what happened with Matthew Sluka.
Well, they promised him one thing.
Misunderstanding with NIL, and I think probably the thing that happened with Indiana is he just fell out of favor and wasn't getting a lot of playing time.
I can see that.
That Indiana offense was cooking without him, and so he's like, okay, well, maybe this isn't the place for me.
I mean, you're not wrong at all.
I'm never wrong, Jay.
Fair point.
I'm playing.
Fair point. You are not ever wrong. But there's a ton of different, options even out there, right? You've got, Devin Brown that just hit the portal from Ohio State. Mm-hmm. If you do want to go with another young quarterback. But again, I think you want to go, and the reason why I would even mention Matthew Sluka is that he's a redshirt senior. So you've got 1 year of eligibility with him. He's a guy that's going to come in, probably play a year, give Michael Hawkins the opportunity to truly learn, get the position down packed, bounce out, and then boom, it goes straight to Michael Hawkins from there. I'm down for someone in that realm of that's played, that's willing to throw the ball on a regular basis, learn a system quickly and get going. Because I'm really ready to see what Michael Hawkins is made of. We got a little bit of a taste. He was thrown in a very uncomfortable situation and he figured it out. Didn't get as good as we would have liked, but we're going to see what he looks like against Navy and how, if he's ready to go ahead and throw the ball on a defense that should allow him to throw the ball. We'll see that
with
from
a better
him.
Offensive line.
With a much better offensive line.
And not facing Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart.
Exactly. You're not dealing with a couple of edges that are going to light you up. We don't have to deal with that. Nope. He should be able to go out there and lead it. He was able to lead us a victory against Auburn. He should be able to do the same thing against Navy. The big thing, especially when it comes to the bowl game, the defense is going to do more work, but he should be able to go out there and throw the ball. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. And I'm very excited to see what he's going to do. I think he's got a lot of promise, a lot of potential. And again, as the offensive line has improved, that should provide him a lot more comfortability. And listen, he didn't look necessarily uncomfortable in that game against South Carolina. It was just, one throw got away from him as he's getting hit. One throw, just a little bit underthrown to JJ Hester on that, that deep over route. And then the fumble, he's getting hit as he's trying to make a play happen. So unfortunate. It's an unfortunate start to that game, an unfortunate series of events for Michael Hawkins. But if you know anything about Michael Hawkins, the dude's going to bounce back and he's going to be a good player despite. Hey, back to Donovan McCulley real quick. So again, this dude led Indiana in receiving in 2023 after transitioning from quarterback as a freshman to wide receiver as a sophomore. Had a little bit of production, not a lot, not anything to really write home about, but then had a good year where he had 6 touchdowns, 600 receiving yards, 40-something catches. And then listen to his snap counts to start the season for the Hoosiers. 9 against FIU, 3 against UCLA, 7 against Charlotte, and just one snap against Maryland. So they weren't playing him. There was not going to be any playing time for him there. And he got an opportunity to redshirt. Because he only played 4 games.
And he was a holdover because this is a new regime there. Kurt Cignetti. So this is a new regime and new setup, and he was a holdover.
Yeah.
Yep. And I guess it was just didn't work out for either side. And they decided, go ahead and redshirt. And Like I said, we don't know the story, what the full story is behind it, but at the same time.
I mean, listen,
look at him.
Honestly, like if you're going to explore quarterback, explore all options. Don't put your head in the sand and say, hey, this is our guy. We're going to just bank everything on him. Really do your diligence and find the guy that can be your 2025 quarterback as you continue to get Michael Hawkins ready for 2026.
Right.
Or the guy that can compete with Michael Hawkins for 2025 and maybe raise his game so that he's pushing for the starting quarterback job in 2025. We'll see. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out. We're going to see a lot of portal activity, both on the offensive and I think we'll see some on the defensive, but I think less so on the defensive side of the ball than what we'll see on the offense, because those guys, they balled out this year, and we're going to need them to ball out one more time as Oklahoma is going to head to the bowl game. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and college all in one spot. So, John, we're going to talk about the bowl game coming up. Right now we know they're going to play against Navy. What do you think that opening spread is?
I'm going to say Oklahoma 4.5.
Pretty good. Very close. Oklahoma -7.5. So Oklahoma is a touchdown plus favorite against Navy. And we're going to talk about that bowl game in a minute. But if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, or if you want to take advantage of that spread, you can do that. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. If you believe in Oklahoma, take advantage of it. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Hey, we're about 275 subscribers from 10,000. So make sure you go hit that subscribe button over on YouTube, and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Tell a friend, tell a family member. It is the season of giving. Give your family and friends Locked On Sooners.
A free subscription too. A
free subscription to Locked On Sooners. Just send them the link. Promo code Locked On Sooners. But no, Jay, the Oklahoma Sooners will be heading to the Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth, Texas, my stomping grounds, to play at Amon G. Carter Stadium, home of the TCU Horned Frogs, against the Navy Midshipmen.
I was a little surprised when I saw it. I was wondering, is between that, the Birmingham Bowl and the Independence Bowl were probably the three that got the most attention that everybody was wondering about. And then whenever the SEC basic what's funny is, as the bowl games were being announced, the SEC put out a statement, and I think this was kind of funny. Greg Sankey basically was in there like, look, I'm gonna put my foot down, and said, nothing's official unless it's tweeted by us or the actual school. So all the leaks, they're like, ignore them. And I'm like, all right. So in other words, the leaks are true. So that's what you're basically telling me. We'll go with that. And so I looked at Action Network and saw that they had us match up against Navy. I'm like, okay, it's going to be fascinating. And Action Network actually had us like a 14-point favorite was their initial one or whatnot. And I think ESPN's SP Plus by Bill Connolly had us like a 9 or 10-point favorite. So they're thinking this spread is actually great value. So kind of fascinating, but Navy runs the ball. They're one of the top running teams in the country, and they don't pass the ball. So we're going to see just how physical and how disciplined our defense is going up against them in Fort Worth.
It makes me wonder if some of the sports books have a pretty good leaning on if Danny Stutzman's going to play.
That's a good question.
Because
that's what I'm curious about.
I would feel much more comfortable about Oklahoma -10 or even 7.5 if I felt like Danny Stutzman was going to play. Because what you're going to have here is one of the best rushing offenses in the country statistically in Navy, averaging 247.4, average 5.4 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns per game, running the ball against Oklahoma's defense, which averages just over 100 yards allowed running the ball per game. So it's going to be a really good like battle of strengths on that front. And if Oklahoma's offense or defense is able to shut down Navy's offense, I say if, they should be able to, given who they have on the interior defensive line at linebacker. Should be a pretty good game. Run a little bear front. It'd be kind of fun. If they're able to slow it down, then I think Oklahoma's offense should be able to do enough against Navy's defense to get a touchdown lead at some point.
Yeah, we're gonna have to run a bear front if we're gonna win this game. That's literally all you're gonna do.
That'd be
big
so
defensive lineman on the ground. And you need to make sure that you're the shiftiness that they do, that they don't surprise you with anything that's going on. And you need a linebacker, Kip, Kobe, Kanik, Carter. Somebody needs to find that hole and plug it every time they try to run the ball. So it's going to be an interesting test for the defense.
It's going to be a fun one.
It's going to be a fun one. It actually is, because the last 2 times we played against the armed services, I think it was like Air Force in the 90s. And I remember the Army game that we had. We were supposed to play them in 2020, but COVID. So that actually ended up, that game did not happen. But the other one before that, it was 28-21? And it was mainly because Army was pulling what Vanderbilt did against Alabama. They literally had the ball for like 40 minutes of the game. Right. And so your defense is just playing nonstop literal defense. Yeah. We're going to have to find ways to get them off the field, and then we need to be the ones running the ball like that. Xavier Robinson needs to get 200 yards rushing in this game. Shoot, Michael Hawkins needs to throw for 200 yards in this game. Get some short passes across the middle, get some short passes going. We're going to have to figure out. The only thing good for us going into this game is that, truth be told, Navy's not going to have any film on us on offense. They're not. Except for Xavier Robinson running the ball and Taylor Tatum running the ball, they have zero film because we have no clue what the pass game's going to look like.
Exactly. You're the more talented team.
Awful.
You're the more talented team. Now, whether you're going to be the better coached team on offense versus Navy's defense, that'll be the question. Your defense should be able to do enough to slow down Navy's offense with what you got along the defensive line, what you have at linebacker. I think they should be able to do enough. You've got a tackling corner in Eli Bowen. The other side, hopefully they're up to snuff and they're ready and willing to tackle with some discipline. But it should, I think it's going to be fun, at least. Hopefully Navy comes up with some good uniforms for the Armed Forces Bowl, like those military academies have been doing in recent years. They've put together some really good fits. So I think it could be a really good classic matchup. But the only time that they've ever played before, in 1965, Oklahoma got the 10-0 shutout loss to Navy.
Avenge.
Yeah.
We're the Avengers. We're going to avenge.
There are not very many teams that hold a 1-0 record lead against Oklahoma. So you got to get this one. Yeah,
that is true.
Who knows the next time that you're going to be able to play Navy again?
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a good question, because I actually cannot think of a single time where we would actually play Navy again.
Exactly.
Besides,
so go get this dub. Finish the season with a winning record. And, I mean, not that matters, but it kind of matters. 7-6 looks better than 6-7. So,
100%.
Any thoughts on the college football playoff, Jay?
I thought it was fascinating how everybody was losing their minds because Alabama didn't get in there. And, of course, we're talking about Alabama because Alabama is one of those teams that they're the most polarizing one. They've had the most success over the last 20 years. And, you hear about them a lot. And so the fans and everyone freaking out, their AD, everybody's basically coming out saying, well, I mean, this is what the playoff committee is going to do. We'll just, we don't need to be playing any type of non-conference games. That's going to be an issue for us. And this is what I found fascinating by it, John. You're looking at hypothetical games, things that are coming in the future, and you're already expecting yourself to lose. So you're basically saying you're going to lose your non-conference games, and that's going to cause you a playoff berth, without realizing that the reason why you didn't make the playoffs is you lost your regular season games.
Yeah.
Like Alabama losing to Oklahoma in Oklahoma, that hurt them. Now, the only thing that helped them is that both of their losses to 6-6 teams, Oklahoma and Vanderbilt, were on the road. It looks a heck of a lot better than Ole Miss getting throttled by Kentucky at their home. Mm-hmm. So you've got arguments here and there. South Carolina's argument with, the LSU game, that was, BS. You got 2 pick sixes called back. So there's a lot of pieces that can be thrown in the air. But if anything, I think that teams need to play more non-conference games and play better ones, so that if you lose 3 conference games again, remember conference games, ones you're supposed to play, you have a better argument to say, look, but we destroyed, like Georgia, we destroyed Clemson first game of the season. Granted, teams get better as the season goes on, but hey, they destroyed Clemson first game of the season. They had a great argument to say, win or lose, we need to be in. Mm-hmm. You maybe need one of those. That'll help.
Well, you look at it from a Texas standpoint. They were a 2-loss team. Everybody pretty much agrees they didn't play anybody this year, but they're in because they only lost twice.
Yep.
And that's what it comes down to. Now, it's not completely Texas's fault that Michigan was bum, that Oklahoma was terrible, and that A&M tripped up down the stretch and no longer was a ranked team when they got a chance to play the Aggies. So it's not entirely Texas's fault that they have, quote unquote, no ranked wins. It's just the Michigan, the quote unquote defending national champion, was terrible this year. Oklahoma was not good this year. And then Texas A&M was fake. It was a fake good team.
Yeah.
And so is Texas good? Who knows? We'll find out. But if you're Alabama, it's simple. Don't lose to Vanderbilt. Don't come off of a big win against Georgia and then lose to Vanderbilt. Don't lose to Oklahoma when you're 2 touchdown favorites and then lose by 3 touchdowns. Just don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it to yourself.
You have nobody to blame but yourself. If you're Ole Miss, don't lose to Kentucky at home. Don't lose to Florida to close the season. You're fine. If you win one of those games, you're probably in the playoff.
Just one. That's all it takes.
One of them. And you didn't. I never in my life would have thought Alabama fans would act scared of playing tough non-conference or cry so much about how they deserve to be in the playoff after losing 3 games. It is baffling to me.
It's amazing.
It would be one thing if Alabama had lost to 3 top 10 teams along the way and they were, or even if they had just lost 3 top 10 games, fine. You have a great argument. You're still a really good team if you have that record and you had 3 top 10 losses. But when you lose 3 times, you don't really have a whole lot of room to stand. You don't have a leg to stand on. If you're South Carolina, yeah, you got screwed against LSU, but you also lost to Bama and Ole Miss. So you don't really have much of a leg to stand on because they can't put you in and leave 2 teams that beat you out. It's just kind of the way it goes. So listen, it's complicated. Everybody hates the committee. Everybody thinks it's a mistake, but I think they got this right. And I know because we're now part of the SEC, we're supposed to be SEC homers, but miss me with that.
No,
the only SEC teams that quote unquote deserve to be in was Georgia, your SEC champion, Texas, who played for the SEC championship, and Tennessee, who beat Alabama. And I mean, listen, they had a really good season. So that's it. Everybody else, you're done. Go home. Cry to your mom.
Yeah, because Tennessee's what, 10-2?
10-2.
Or were they 9-3? They're 10-2. Yeah, you went 10-2. So you won 10 games.
And they beat Alabama.
I think winning double-digit games is critical to get you into the playoffs.
Yep.
And if you do that, you're probably going to be in. Not very many teams that won double-digit didn't make it, except for your Big 12 runner-up, as well as BYU, who was the other 10-win team. Not very many 10-win teams did not get in there.
Nope.
But, I mean, Army, they kind of got overlooked. Memphis as well at 10-2 got overlooked. But Miami, you had a few of them out there, but I think they got it right. SMU played in the ACC championship game. They deserve to be in there. And that game came down to a game-winning field goal.
Yes.
We thought it was going to be a blowout initially. The game-winning field goal. So,
and that's a fun team, actually. So that's going to be really fun.
They went undefeated in conference.
Yep. We'll have to talk to some of the matchups at some point, too, because Kevin Jennings versus Drew Aller, that's going to be a good time. Like that.
Good time.
That game could cook up the scoreboard as well. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button over there and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Again, just $275 from 10,000. So help us out. Hit that subscribe button. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Also go check out his channel on YouTube, Unfair Sports. Follow me at John 9 Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Boomer.
Sooner.